Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I will speak in English today because unfortunately I don't speak Italian and I don't speak Russian. So bear with me and, I'm honored to be here today. And I will talk in the next 15 minutes about what the Open Geospatial Consortium is and what we are doing, and most importantly, why we are doing it. The presentation is about the importance of standards and interoperability. I will give a very brief introduction to the Open Geospatial Consortium, in short OGC, and in closing I will provide some examples that you get an idea in which areas you can use OGC standards. So what is it all about? In a more and more complex and interdependent world, we are facing many challenges which need to be addressed on local as well as on global level. So if you talk about urban sustainability with aspects like urban planning, traffic control, or solar energy potentials in cities, or pandemic diseases. We all know about the foot and mouth disease and H1F1, or if extreme weather and climate change events, they all call for international activities and access to accurate and current geospatial data and information. We need to manage data and information exchange, and we need systems that enable different organizations, governments, and the industry to communicate with each other. Cross-boundary information sharing is very important. And if I talk about cross-boundary information sharing, I don't mean only the boundaries between countries, but also between organizations, or between departments in one organization, or between people, between you and me. And the ability to access, fuse, and apply diverse data sources is critical to situational awareness. We want to improve knowledge sharing and transfer, and we do this by addressing critical issues that need cooperation across domains and multidisciplinary. I already showed the example on urban centers and coastal areas, but we have also challenges for climate change and environmental monitoring, water resources, the access to clean water, and the availability to access all this water, emergency planning, preparedness, civil protection, aviation safety, and many more. I already mentioned that the availability of data is crucial for administrations, citizens, and businesses alike. But how do you share data? One key factor in making geospatial information and location information accessible is standardization. It is the definition of common interfaces and terminology between heterogeneous systems to enable interoperability. A study of the German standardization body found out that standards have a greater positive effect on the economy or economic growth than do patents or licenses. Let me summarize the first part of my presentation with a quote from David Schell, our founder and chairman emeritus of the board of directors. What the Open Geospatial Consortium is doing is facilitating a common picture of reality for different organizations which have different views of the reality, the disaster, the catastrophe that they all have to deal with collectively. In the next few slides, I will explain what the OGC from an organizational perspective is and how we are set up. At the time when OGC was founded in 1994, users of Geographic Information System, so-called GIS, were unable to easily share and exploit geospatial information between GIS software coming from different vendors. This was when the OGC was founded as a not-for-profit international industry consortium. Just that you get an idea, we have ISO on international level. In Russia there is Rosakkreditacija, and in Italy there is UNI, And the OGC is doing something similar, but is open for industry, public administration, and the research sector as well. The purpose of the OGC is to develop publicly available interface standards. OGC standards support interoperable solutions that geo-enable the web, wireless and location-based services, and mainstream IT. Currently, we are over 470 members worldwide, 1/3 from industry, about 1/3 from government and public administration, and 1/3 from research in the academic sector. And here are just a few logos from our members. So we have, of course, specialized GIS and space agencies and organizations, but also mainstream IT and .com organizations are participating in our process. If you ask our members why they work in the OGC, they say, well, we have interoperability issues. We cannot share maps on the web, or we cannot find and pull together data that is coming from different sensors. And therefore, they joined the OGC to join a group, a network of experts that face similar challenges, and they want to solve them by developing standards. Every one of us is using the internet, and we do it on a daily basis. So, as HTTP is the dial tone of the World Wide Web, when we are talking about the geospatial web, this is enabled by OGC standards. So we have a very, very broad user community worldwide, and many policy positions on geoinformation are underpinned by OGC standard. The session before was about infrastructure. In my domain, we talk about spatial data infrastructures. This is not like the infrastructures on the road or in construction, but it's more on the IT level. So, but we don't want to reinvent the wheel, and therefore the OGC is cooperating with many other standards bodies. What OGC brings to the table here is expertise and leadership on location to help the broader IT organizations to understand what we mean with geospatial information and location information, and we bring also expertise in innovative standard processes to the plate for the development, testing, and certification of standards. All activities in the OGC are driven by users' needs. So our members define which standards they want to develop, which interface they want to work on. And the standards development is also influenced by changing technology. Take, for example, sensors. The number of internet-connected devices will reach between 50 and 60 billions by the end of the decade. Many of them connected to the internet, and all of them are sensing phenomena like temperature, somewhere and somewhen, and they have a coordinate. Probably all of you have a smartphone, and if this would be equipped with a sensor where you can detect temperature, and you have your GPS enabled, and you send this information to a provider, suddenly you have a climate map of the city, which might help traffic management, especially in summers. So, in the last part of my presentation, I will provide some examples that show how the OGC, its standards, and its members work together to address environmental and societal challenges. I explained why interoperability and standards are important in today's interconnected world, and why participation in an international standards body is key to success. Now let me explain in some example some of why interoperability is important and why international cooperation is crucial. So, together with the World Meteorological Organization, WMO, we have established a working group on hydrology, seeking common, standardized technical and institutional solutions to improve our knowledge of water resources above and below the surface of the earth. This domain working group is active on various areas and is supporting the development of an open standard called WaterML. I see the time ticking here, so they cut 5 minutes of my time, so I'm a bit, I have to run through the presentation. But I think these next two examples are interesting. This is from one of our members. The content is provided by Marco Massavo from Fondazione Cima, a member in OGC. And they have a project called Adria Radnet. And it is an integrated radar-based and web-oriented information processing system network to support hydrometeorological monitoring and civil protection. They overlay and use information from different sources like radar-based product and satellite products. And additionally, they are using information from meteo forecasting models and hydrometeorological models. So you have information and data from very different systems. You need to overlay them to be able to take a decision. So by using OGC interface standards that allow interoperability, they overlay and combine these different information, for example, also with statistical information. And as a result, they can provide hazard maps that support decision makers in their work. The next example is from Russia, and Alexander Bezprosvanik, I hope I pronounced it correctly, from Roshydromet, the Russian Federal Service for Hydrometeorological and Environmental Monitoring, provided me these screenshots. They are also using OGC standards. This is a special application to control all their observation platforms in Russia. And this example is a special application called Clyware. The Clyware information system realizes basic functions of the future WMO information system project. It helps to collect and distribute hydrometeorological information, and again, the data is distributed through OGC interface standards. As a last example, something from Taiwan. Taiwan is hit very often by typhoons and tsunamis, and those trigger landslides and flooding on a frequent basis. OGC services are used in an array of spatial data and sensors like geophones, CCD cameras, wire sensors, and all this information that these sensors collect, they are provided through satellite communication to a data receiving center and also to the debris flow emergency operational center, and the person in charge, the decision maker, can decide either to evacuate people or, if it's not a very extreme event. The person in charge of this project, or is participating in the project, said the success of our programs to monitor, detect, warn, and respond to emergencies and natural disasters in Taiwan depends heavily on OGC standards. We use OGC web services and sensor web enablement standards to rapidly mobilize, monitor, forecasting and warning networks, and to implement a diversity of sensors assets as part of these systems. And I think the important thing is here, this saves time, money, and lives. Summarizing, let me explain. I explained that sharing data is important, and I think we all agree on that. And if you need to share data, why not also share your experiences and build on existing ones? Avoid reinventing the wheel and duplication of work, efforts, and resources. And as I showed, we live in an important time for leveraging location information for improved decision making. So cooperation on international level is key to success. And the technology evolution will continue in a fast, unpredictable, and disruptive pace. Interoperability in using open standards helps also to sustain your investments. And as Sylvain Grellet from the International Office for Water said, once you have understood how much open standards can underpin environmental policies, you keep trying to convince others and this is what I'm doing here today. This is exactly what we at Office International de l'Eau have been doing for years now in France and in other nations. I really enjoy taking part in this movement and will continue planting open standard seeds wherever I can. And I think an important aspect of to sometimes just change the perspective, get a different view of what you're doing, go a step behind and try to, well, have a different perspective on things. Thank you very much for your attention.